Phil.
And I'm Kate.
And this is The Underground, live from Glee 2024.
Ooh.
So, without further ado,
let's get down and dirty.
And we're delighted this morning to be joined, it's actually this afternoon, to be joined by the President of the HTA, Alan Down.
Good afternoon, both of you.
Afternoon, Alan. Thank you for coming along.
So, Alan, why don't we start off by asking you about your life in horticulture, running a successful nursery business of your own. Perhaps you could start by just giving us a little bit of that background.
Yeah, okay. I'm a lifetime horticulturalist. I trained at Cannington College, then Birchall College, then went and worked in North Germany, and then went back to Hampshire, having worked in container production and root balling of plants in Schleswig-Holstein. Then I came back to Hilliers and set up their container enterprise. There was just one or two sand beds when I joined them, and about 25 acres of container plants when I left 9 years later. So it was a very exciting time when container production was just getting going in the UK.
So is that quite a technical thing then? I mean, I'm not a gardener.
Yes.
Okay, so for a non-technical person, is that quite a technical production thing that you have to do to be able to make them work?
Well, you have to be able to understand, plants' needs, and they vary a lot. But at that time, it was the beginning of really garden centres, the early days of garden centres. There was demand there for container-grown plants all year round.
Yeah,
and container production was set up to satisfy that demand and enable gardeners to buy plants every day of the year.
I mean, it's revolutionary, really, because before everything was bare root.
Yep, absolutely. And very seasonal.
Yes, of
very
course.
Seasonal indeed.
And with this became, I suppose, the whole potting compost industry as well must have come at the same time.
It did. But we then, in those days, had Efford Experimental Station, government funded, really quite close to us, and they would do experimental work on the best compost to grow shrubs in, and perennials and trees. And then we would take that experimental work and scale it up and demonstrate that it was good or bad. So it was an exciting time, and I can see that we're actually in a similar period now with that transition from peat to peat-free. We're having to learn to grow differently. We're having to learn a new technique, but this time without that government support and without having to self-fund and trial plants and find out what's best. But I was fortunate in that I was successful in getting a Nuffield Farming Scholarship to travel in North America to look at container production and marketing for 8 weeks. I visited 23 states. So it was a big trip.
How long was that for?
That was for 8 weeks.
23 states.
And they're big states, aren't they?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the Nuffield Farming Scholarship Trust is available to people established in their careers. They tend to be more mature than many scholarships that are offered. So it's good for somebody who's got sort of middle management or has maybe ownership of their own business, but got their business to a state where they can actually take 8 weeks off and travel. So they have to be really quite sorted. And I was very fortunate that Hillier Nurseries let me go and do that. Amazing. And I brought back a lot of knowledge in terms of production and marketing to the Hillier enterprise. But, having said, and to the industry in general, because one of the things you have to do is write a report and disseminate that information by giving lectures throughout the country wherever asked.
Goodness me.
And the Nuffield Farming Scholarship is still there for our industry and farming and associated industries. And I do feel quite strongly that of late, the environmental, ornamental, horticultural sector have not been applying for it. And it's a great scholarship that we should be getting within our industry. to learn from others and then disseminate that information to raise the standards in the industry.
So let's just make that clear. So it's the Nuffield Farming Scholarship, but it's not just for farming.
No, it's for horticulture as well.
Right.
And viticulture, veterinary. It's quite wide.
Yeah, it sounds it.
And it's UK based. It was set up by Lord Nuffield.
Okay.
He had two passions. One was health. Well, one was motor cars, because that's where he made his money. So one was health, the other was farming. And he put his money into those two things. So hence Nuffield Hospitals and the Nuffield Farming Scholarship Trust. And there's 20 scholars every year. And I was fortunate to be one of those. And there's 20 still every year.
Every year?
Yeah.
Gosh,
but
I've never heard of it.
But it's rolled out. You see, we've failed, haven't we?
Yeah.
So it's rolled out now to other countries. For instance, it's very strong in the old Commonwealth countries of Canada, Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Very strong. Zimbabwe, France, there's some from France, some from Holland, some from Germany, a few from the States, but they've got their own schemes.
Right.
Brazil's in it.
Wow.
And we are widening that family of Nuffield Scholarship. Now, you didn't get me here to talk about that alone.
No, but it's fascinating.
So, that was my period at HTA Nurseries. I saw that lots of people in the States and Canada knew very little about horticulture. And I think I knew quite a lot because I have a Master of Horticulture.
I think you do.
And I thought, well, hell, if they can do it, then I can do it. So coming back after a short period of time, we decided to set up our own business. We bought an old business near Bristol, which had a great location, but was very, very run down. And that was Cleve Nursery. We started growing plants there as well as retailing.
Right.
The retailing took off big time, so we filled the space with everything we could sell.
Right.
And then 1999, 2000, we bought a small holding on the opposite side of the road and went back into growing plants to sell at Cleve Nursery.
Right.
So we had that for 35 years.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And you don't do that anymore?
Don't do that anymore. Retired 6 years ago.
Right.
And I thought that was it. Had a good innings, but then the HTA came knocking and said, would I stand in? Would I be their next president? And I thought, gosh, that's a huge honour.
Yes.
And because I knew lots of people in the industry, a lot of people know me, it was a challenge that I relished and have enjoyed.
So I understand, let's stay on that subject then.
Yes.
So I understand that your tenure as president of the HTA is coming to an end.
Yes.
So you've been doing it for 2 years, is that
2
right?
years,
2
yeah.
years.
Oh, okay.
And during that time, what things have you been most proud of achieving?
Most proud of, I think what I've been most proud of is how we have achieved achieved is the wrong word, but we've got the ear of government, of powers that be. We've been much more successful in
putting forward
the benefit of horticulture, and I think COVID helped.
Yes.
We were able to see
the numbers
and demonstrate that the health benefit of gardening.
Okay.
And we were one of the first retail operations. Garden centres were one of the first to open after COVID.
Yeah.
And I think that we now have an awareness of the benefit of gardening to the nation. But also we argue quite strongly that we can deliver about 50% of the government targets involve horticulture in some way or other, particularly environmental horticulture.
I guess that's quite important for you now or not you personally, but for the HTA to keep that in the government sights, that the importance of horticulture and gardening in particular.
Yes, of course. And during my tenure, we had a deep dive into horticulture by the House of Lords.
I remember the visit to Chelsea.
Yes. Yes. And the report was good. It was very positive and it showed quite clearly what we could offer the nation. However, the past government took a look at it and sort of put it on one side. They had other priorities. But having said that, it's in the house, it's in the library, and we continue to refer to it. We hope that the Labour government will pick up on many things there and deliver in the future.
Yes, let's hope so.
So what was the toughest part of your role as president, would you say?
Toughest part, well, actually, we've had this transition from peat to peat-free. I would say that's been one of the tougher things in terms of managing that. But also, I would add to that the trade difficulties we have currently with the new arrangement. And what really concerns the Horticultural Trades Association, well, there's several things. One is the biosecurity at the moment. There aren't enough inspections. We're getting stuff waved through, so we're open to potentially importing pest and diseases we don't have. But it's an interruption to supply. There's an added cost to importers.
So can I just interrupt you there? Because I think sometimes people working in horticulture understand the significance of biosecurity. But I think people who are related to it, so maybe lots of people here at Glee who are in the retail side of things, don't fully appreciate the importance of it. So can you explain a little bit about the importance of that?
I'll try. Now, we know that 90% of garden centres and nurseries import plants in some way or other. They may not be aware of it. I mean, house plants, for instess, nearly all of those are imported. With Brexit leaving the EU, we don't really have an agreement. We're pressurising, we're hoping to pressurise the EU to have an agreement of both importation of animal and plant products. They're concentrating on animal products. We want them to accept plant products are important too. And if we bring plants in that have pests we don't have, we don't necessarily have a natural predator for it because it wasn't here already.
We've got a few already, haven't we?
Yeah, we sure have. And the same goes with diseases. We may import diseases which, like Xylella, for instance, which has devastated olives in southern Europe. So something like that could be devastating to the industry in the sense that it doesn't just affect olives, it has a very wide host range. Many woody plants that we rely on, core plants, such as rosemary, for instance, could be wiped out completely. So that's why it's important. We're an island nation, we're a trading nation. We should be able to keep it out.
Yes, we need to protect our shores.
We need to have those protections in place.
Yeah, we do. So you're going to be handing over the reins fairly soon. Do you have any advice that you could give to your predecessor? Not your predecessor, successor. Haven't got my glasses on.
Not really, per se, but I'll be there to advise if I can.
Right, lovely.
And just a WhatsApp or a phone call away.
Brilliant.
I think that Will Armitage, after the AGM, if he's voted in, because it's subject to the members' vote, will make an excellent president, and he's very, very well known in the industry. He was a previous chair of the Garden Centre Association, which comes under the umbrella of HTA, as does the Association of Professional Landscapers, so APL. So I don't think I would advise him. And he's already very, very much engaged because he's on the board. He's taken on several things that he can see will go beyond my presidency. And I've made it fairly clear that I would like to go back to retirement. I've got plans.
I was going to say, are you ready to let go?
I put on hold, and I'm not a spring chicken. And I've got lots of energy left, and I want to make use of that before I fall off my perch.
So you are ready to let go?
Yes, I am, but I'm also there to support and to advise if necessary.
Wonderful. So one question I want to ask is, what are you looking forward most to seeing at Glee this year?
Okay, so I always make a beeline for the plants. The future plants there I thought were fantastic. Some great stuff there. Michael Perry's done a great job again. And I think that's a new feature that is particularly good at Glee. The whole green area there is well worthwhile visiting.
It's needed,
it is. And I've had a look at the new products, and I have to say I'm slightly disappointed there's no real standout new thing there that's in my view is going to
wow the sector.
Exactly. And the question was asked recently, how do garden centres expand in the future? They perhaps reach the the end of development of catering, because already it's nearly a quarter of the turnover of many centres. So where do we go from there? It's a very difficult one to answer. I think that theatre, we need to inspire customers to bring them in and really wow them. I mean, many garden centres are destination garden centres already. But that's the one thing. We've got space, we've got fantastic staff who can build really good displays, and we need to inspire people to by visiting us, buying from us as well, as opposed to going online and buying something they haven't seen. Not that that suits a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of my other questions is, what are the opportunities for the garden sector? And I think you've kind of answered that.
Yes. And of course, the HTA does represent a lot of tree growers as well. So there's, the forestry sector, the Christmas tree growers sector.
Of course,
there's a much bigger organisation.
Absolutely.
Rose growers, lots, lots of different angles there.
Yeah.
And so picking up on the theatre within the store that you were saying about, we were talking just before the interview about the talent store here at Glee. And you haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
As soon as I've finished here, I'm going to see it.
There's a couple of stands there and they're really well worth looking at. We interviewed both teams on the podcast, and they explained all the concepts behind their schemes and what they were going to be doing. It sounds great, and we've had a look at them. They are well worth having a look at.
And it is what you're talking about. Let's encourage that drama, the theatre that will draw people in. So we need to keep going with that and pushing that every year. Because actually one of the sad things I found out about Talent Store is that quite a few members of the team dropped out as it went along. So I thought people were eliminated like a talent show, but that's not the case. But they just couldn't keep up with it, which is, I think it's a bit of a shame. So really be good to keep pushing it so more and more people want to be part of that.
And understand. I mean, it is a commitment. It's a commitment from both the garden centre and from the staff as well.
Yes. I did listen to the podcast that you did with them. Yes, I thought it was very good.
While we're on that sort of theatre, merchandising within the store sort of conversation, you mentioned that when you went off to America on the scholarship, you not just looked at container planting, but you looked at the marketing side of things as well. So what was that all about?
Well, we're talking 1980, so that was last century. And but at the time, I think it's fair to say that the garden centres in particular were ahead of us here. Shortly after that, maybe within sort of 15, 20 years, the reverse was the case. The Americans were coming to us to look at our garden centres for inspiration. Where are we now? I think we're probably still ahead.
Good.
So, great. But they were ahead at the time, and I was able to sort of pick up things that and bring back and disseminate here. One thing that I tried very hard was that there was a levy on plant sales of 1% of turnover to put into a fund to publicise plants over the nation. And you imagine how big the States is from tropical to really very short summers. That was quite a challenge, but they chose to use radio for that. Using the mind, you see, as opposed to pictorial. And that was quite interesting.
Very interesting.
I tried to get that going here, but we're not so good perhaps at cooperating. The Brits like to do their own thing. So that never really got off the ground, which is a shame. But I'd still love to see a generic promotion for gardening that's funded by the industry and maybe with outside help too, rolled out in the future.
Interesting, yes.
We touched on peat-free earlier. Do you have a sympathy for those growers who are struggling to make that transition from peat to peat-free? And would you have any advice for them?
Well, absolutely. I certainly have sympathy with them. Actually, one of the things I did as a result of my Nuffield was to come back and use peat-free at Hillier Nurseries. And we tried it for a couple of seasons, quite a big scale.
How early on are we?
1981, 82. It was very successful from the plant point of view. We had fantastic root systems compared to what we were producing before.
Yeah.
That was very noticeable. But what we couldn't get in those days was sufficient volume and consistency of supply.
Yes.
And it was very early days in terms of that.
Goodness,
But most of the Americans and Canadians are growing peat-free anyway. They do have a lot of peat that comes out of Canada that they do use, but many of them are using forest products to grow their plants.
Have been
for generations.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think we've covered my next question.
Yes,
so I think
absolutely. So we're going to finish off with, I think, Alan, that it's fair to say you enjoy gardening.
I think that's fair to say. I've got quite a big garden, it's an acre, and it's a new one 6 years ago. So still building it up, actually getting to the editing stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good soil? Do you have good soil?
It's actually it's a heavy it's a clay loam, which if you get things established, grow really well.
Yeah.
But you've got cracks in the summer that you can put your hand down, and then in the winter, water standing on the surface.
Yeah.
But first thing I did was actually to after I cleared all the brambles and the nettles, I put a land drain system in, a herringbone land drain system, and I incorporated gypsum to flocculate the clay particles to improve the structure chemically.
Be testing you on this later.
Yeah, I'll be taking notes.
And are you a proponent of mulch? Do you do much mulching?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm a big mulch fan.
Are you a big mulch fan? Okay. Yes. I mean, for instance, we bought 5.5 tons of digestate this last spring.
Right.
Digestate comes from anaerobic digesters. It's the waste product that's generally put back on farmland. But we were lucky to have an anaerobic digester just 3 miles away.
There's Rocket Grow in Somerset as well, or is
there is, but that's the north of the county, and I think I think that digestate is fantastic as a mulch.
Yeah,
I've tried compost that contain digestate to grow plants in without any success. I'm afraid. I think it has to be a limited amount in a compost.
Okay.
It's quite caustic. It will burn seedlings really badly. So we're quite careful when we use it as a mulch in the garden, not around soft seedlings like lettuce or bedding plants. But we apply a heavy mulch through all our borders, around all our trees. And I think 5.5 tons is quite a lot.
That's
but it cuts down on the weeding hugely, traps in the moisture, improves the soil because it's pulled in by earthworms. We saw the earthworm count go up by a huge amount because when I put those drains in, I thought, there's no earthworms here. This is really bad. And a side benefit that I wasn't expecting is slugs and snails hate it.
Really? No, I didn't know that one.
So I put it around pots of hostas, and it goes a long way to keeping them off. I won't say it's 100%, not this year especially.
Well, no, I don't think anything will be this year.
Hasn't it?
Slug will get them. So do you have a favourite plant or flower that will always make you smile?
Oh, wow.
I know that's a tough question.
Yeah, a tough question for a plantsman. And today, different to tomorrow. Okay, it's okay. Okay, well, I'll give you one that's really delighted us all summer, and it's the red bud called Cercis canadensis Eternal Flame. And we've got one of those in a pot. We have one of the early ones that Sutton Seeds actually gave me to trial.
Didn't that win an award?
It won several awards. It won Best in Chelsea. But it's just so many colours in it. And if gardeners can't grow Japanese maples, they can grow that because you've got that same delicate effect, moving leaves.
Fantastic.
And it's a great plant.
I've grown forest pansy, which I love. So I've not tried the Eternal Flame. I must try that.
It's like a different plant altogether in terms of that colour variation.
Right. Okay, we're going off on one, Phil.
Yeah, I've noticed that. That's good. That's good. All to be encouraged. But I think actually that wraps things up. I think we've had a thoroughly enjoyable chat with you, Alan. I really enjoyed that.
And I think we could chat for a lot longer because you've got so much knowledge and experience.
We'll
but shorter interviews this week. Shut me up, I hope.
But thank you so much, Alan. That's brilliant.
Thank you both.
And enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you. I'm going to.